Okay, looks like we are up and running with the stream. Very good evening to you all. Phil Pendlebury here, and I hope you're having a super large day or evening, depending where you are in the world. And of course, for visitors from the Middle East, salam alaikum, marhaba. Good to have you with us. So we have another one of my, what I like to call slightly more detailed walkthroughs today. And I'm going to try and show you as many features as I can about the Nuendo 12 MediaBay. It's an often overlooked feature. You can use it to organize all your audio files, and people tend to find that they just kind of drag files from the desktop or from various places and so on, and overlook a lot of the more detailed features of the MediaBay. So my goal today is to try and kind of get through some of the more interesting features. We'll not go through every single thing, but we'll go through as many features as we can. You can use MediaBay to organize pretty much all your media. That's the whole point of it, to categorize, index, and so on. But it's not limited literally only to media. The media also includes plugins, instruments, MIDI files, you name it, even project files actually. So yeah, so that's the plan today. There won't be a great deal of audio today, but it'd probably be a good idea to put the headphones on in a bit. I'll give you a shout when we get to that. Thanks a lot for those of you that are with us so far, by the way. And I almost forgot to mention last time, I've got my assistant with me, so if you're typing any messages and so on, I'll do my best to kind of shout over some little replies and try and keep the chat going while we're still streaming, if that's possible. So if there's any questions and so on, please feel free to ask. So let me just have a quick look down at my notes and see if there's anything here that that might be relevant to the intro. Yeah, so MediaBay allows you to organize your files and media that are on your computer, but we can also use remote disks as well. So we'll get to that. That's a kind of one of those features that's really not that well known, disk volumes and so on. So we'll get to that in a minute. And I'm going to start off actually with the right zone media section. Again, often overlooked. So let's just get into the project. This one's a little bit tricky because the right zone is obviously, by nature of its name, is over in the right hand side of the screen. So I've set up a kind of zoom that's going to zoom in on this, and let's hope that it works. Right, let's move into the project, and actually it's a blank project, but let's move into that and see how we get on. All right, so I've got a blank project open. There's nothing in it really apart from a few dummy tracks and so on and so forth. And we've got the right zone open over here on the right. You can see that there's some tabs here. This is the area where we have the BST instrument rack, the control room, which I've already got open in a separate little dialogue here. And the metering can all be done in that right hand zone. But what we're interested in today is the media section. Obviously we also have, if I bring up my key command, we also have the main MediaBay window, which we'll get to in a bit. So what I thought I'd do first is go through the right hand zone and all the different features of that in case there's anything that people might have missed. And then we'll move over to the main MediaBay window, and some of the things will be duplicated, so we can then kind of, go through that and see what's been duplicated and what hasn't, and so on. Right, so camera off. You don't want to see me while I'm fiddling about here. And let's get rid of the main MediaBay window and we'll get on with it. Yeah, so there are many features that post folks and music folks as well might be unaware of, as I said in my little intro there. Many people just drag audio from the desktop into the project. So what I want to do today is show some sort of practical examples of usage. You can manage all your media files and remote disks using volume databases, which we'll get to in a bit. You can scan the disk to store all the file info, and then you can do other operations with the files, searching and inserting into projects. And there's some things that can only be done in Nuendo. I'll try to highlight those when we get to them. So off we go. Right, so over to the right hand side of the screen now. I've moved my notes on the other iPad over here. So yeah, I don't know if it's going to interfere, the lighting there. Probably not. Hopefully not. It doesn't matter, does it? We are live, so we're going to have a few little hiccups as usual today. Right, so I've got the right hand zone open. It probably looks a little bit tiny at the moment, so I'm going to attempt to kind of zoom in on the top half of this while we're working on it, and then we'll zoom back out when we're dealing with stuff that's in the actual project. So let's get going. At the top of the media window here, you can see, well, would we call it a window? I don't know. First of all, of course, I should tell you how to actually get this open in case you don't have it on a key command. So I just have to kind of press a key to do this. But you can see while I'm doing that, there's a little area in the toolbar at the top of Nuendo itself, which enables us to hide and show, the various areas of the window. So I've been calling this a window. It's not really a window, is it? It's more of a zone, they call it. And we can get to that by showing and hiding the right zone like this. So there's a little window there, a little box there. Click it with the mouse and off we go. Right, so we'll start at the top. At the top, we've got the search area. This will come into its own in a bit more detail when we get to the filtering and all that stuff a little bit later on. But let's just give you an example of that. If I type drum into there, you can see immediately a lot of info comes up. Anything that's related to drums, they might be in drum folders. A little bit difficult to see all the info, and this is where the main MediaBay window probably does some stuff better. But if you know exactly what you're looking for, the search thing can be really handy. We can reset that so that it's blank, so it's basically just showing all your media. And we also have a way to set up the various columns. So there's so much info here. If you look, you can see we've got all the different audio assets, the loudness values, the date it was recorded, so on, recording method. I mean, you name it, pretty much everything is here. All these attributes can be searched, depending, of course, on how much of the metadata itself you've actually added into the files. So I usually find that the basic search system works quite well, but let's not concentrate too much on that while we're in the right zone. Because like I said, it's a bit difficult to see it all, but we will go into that when we get into the main MediaBay window. So I'll just reset that back. We can hide the, obviously the filters at the top as well. These are kind of, well, they're just the basic attribute filters, which aside from what you type in, you can also, look through those. But we'll get rid of all that for now. And let's just make sure I haven't missed anything here. Of course, the other thing is your favorites are shown underneath, and I'll show you how to set up favorites in a minute. So, okay, so we've showed how search actually works just by typing in a character or two, which is pretty obvious. I mean, that's a search. But what are the actual things that we can do while we're in this right-hand zone? Right, so let's first have a look at the VST instrument section. You all know what VST instruments are. I for many years went through using rack instruments as opposed to instrument tracks. So a rack instrument and an instrument track are kind of two different things. We won't go into that now because we're going to try and concentrate on MediaBay. But as is always the case with this stuff, you start to talk about one thing and then there's other branches and things that come from that. So we have to be a little careful to limit the amount of information that we're going to go into. Otherwise, we'll be here for 4 hours. And I want to try and keep this to a nice kind of hour, 45 minutes to an hour today, just so you're aware. And incidentally, the other point I have to make there quickly is we were going to do MediaBay, and we were also going to do the Project Logical Editor today as well in detail. But when I did my one run through earlier on today, I kind of came to the conclusion, yeah, there's no way we're going to get through both of those. So the Project Logical Editor, which is really interesting, we'll do that in a forthcoming stream. Right, let's get the camera off and get on with it. I'm talking too much. Camera off and VST instruments. So click the button. And as you can see, I've got a list now here of all my VST instruments. Now, you're probably noticing that, first of all, what are these categories all about? Let's just, yeah. So I've got my plugins set up in my own little, my own configuration. I don't use the standard one. We talked about that in an earlier video. So again, I'm not going to go into it all now about how to do that, but I've basically organized them by brand and got rid of a lot of the stuff that I don't use. But I also have a favorite section, which I keep at the top, that keeps, you know, the stuff that I use more regularly. So that's that. Okay, quick drink, excuse me. Okay. So let's just, it doesn't matter really what we're looking at. We'll look at the Steinberg stuff. There's the Steinberg instruments, as you can see at the moment. And if we look down at some of the others, you can see they've all got nice pictures and so on. And one thing that somebody was asking on the forum the other day was about the pictures. So how do we do that? Well, let's find something that hasn't got a picture. There we go. CZV. All right. So what we do is we can drag that onto the project window, or indeed to the track list, which is usually the best way to deal with this. So I've dragged that onto the track list. We'll quickly zoom out so you can see. And I haven't used this one since I've installed it. So there it is. So you can see over here on the right hand side that there's no picture there, and all we need to do is when you have this open is just click the little camera here and you'll see that the picture now, oops, I was looking in the wrong place, wasn't I? The wonders of the IQ when you are streaming. So let's do another one just to make sure it's well and truly in focus. Emulator 2, let's drag that across. Wait for it to load up, open the instrument, there it is, and then you see the little camera button. Watch the Emulator 2 here, and as soon as I take that picture, it's refreshed itself and there's the little picture. So that's how that's done, and they're all stored in a particular place on your computer, which I'll show you right now. So yeah, just a quick look here. So if you look on the left hand side, this is my user documents folder, and Steinberg and VST thumbnails. And if we quickly modify that, if we set the sorting by modified, then you'll see the latest images there. And these file names are actually all related to the plugin ID. So they're really, I don't know, you know, it'd be useful to back those up, and usually I would guess that if you're backing up your data, you would definitely have your documents data backed up So therefore, you know, you can always just restore those if you're ever doing a new installation. Right, so that's how we do the pictures. Let's just, I mean, one of the things I was going to show you here was how to actually create an instrument from the VST instrument area of that panel. And we've now already seen that. So, you know, there's not really much need to do. Let's just do one more, just for the sake of it. So we'll grab this DX7 here. We can either just place it on the project or in the track list. Like I said, preferable really to place into the track list, and you'll see why that is in a little while, because some of the other things do actually involve using the track list. So there we are, that's all done, and that's how we create an instrument track just by dragging from the track list, from the VST instrument area of the media section. Okay, so we will now get rid of those, which what I'll do the easiest way, I think, will just bring up the mixer history. Sorry, yeah, I'm looking at the wrong thing. I've been doing this earlier on to test it all out, and of course the history will be when we get to the plugins and so on. So the simplest way is just going to be to select those tracks and actually just delete them. There's no real need to remove them, but we might as well keep things organized for now. So as I was saying earlier, no need for any audio right now, so we can quite happily just carry on with without our headphones on. So okay, so we hit the little home button, and the next thing we have here is VST effects. Now this is where things get a little bit more interesting, so we'll click that. Once again, you can see the same thing applies. We have a list of, or pictures should I say, of all the plugins. Again, I have my, let's collapse them all. I have my favorites up at the top. And then I also have everything else sorted by brand name. And I do this, I've explained earlier, I do this to try and kind of keep things organized. Otherwise you end up with various doubles and other things, double plugins. You get VST3 and VST2 versions sometimes. So I like to keep them organized myself, and we do that in the plugin manager, which I've showed you on previous videos. So have a look for that if you're interested. So what can we do with a VST plugin effect area? Okay, so let's go for a Steinberg plugin here. We'll just expand that little list. You can see again that the pictures are there. And the other nice thing here is all the Steinberg ones, the pictures are already included. But once again, if you want to make your own pictures of your kind of, you know, non-standard plugins, the same thing applies. So what happens if we drag, for example, let's go for the mono delay. It's a nice simple plugin. Let's drag that across. Oh, we can't. We can't, of course, we can't insert it into the project because there's nothing to insert it on. However, if we take it over to the track list and let go, at the moment, whoa, you see nothing again. It looks like it's disappeared. But what's actually happened, let's zoom back out so we can see. What's actually happened is it's been inserted as an effects channel. So if we now bring up, let's see my mixer here, pull that up into the middle so you can see that's an effects track, and the mono delay has been inserted into it, which is super cool. So we'll just do another one just for the sake of you know, just showing the consistency of it. Let's go for Mod Machine. So again, drag it into the track list. Doesn't matter where you put it at this point, but we'll get to that in a minute. At the moment, if you just drag it to the bottom of the list, let go, and you can see there that that has also created automatically a effects track with that particular plugin inserted as the effect for that track. Fantastic. So, okay, so I've got some dummy tracks here. So let's just try and highlight one of those. So let's, okay, which mixer shall we use? This one here. And I can get it so that it's kind of visible. Hopefully this will work. And we can zoom in there. So you can see I've got this track, Another, which is highlighted on the mixer and highlighted over here. So what if we want to insert a delay onto that track? Of course, normally you would just drop down the list and you'd go and you'd find your plugin. But if you like to use this right-hand zone method, which can be actually quite handy, we can, let's drag that, get that mono delay again. And this time I'm going to, instead of just dropping it on the track list, I'm going to, you can see the little arrow there. If you move your cursor so it's kind of balanced on the track. In fact, I tell you what, we'll just make that track a bit bigger so you can see. So once again, we're grabbing the mono delay, we're taking it over, and you can see there's a nice little green arrow that appears, and we let go. Now you can see that that effect has been inserted onto the Another channel, and there it is. Very cool. And this gets even more clever. You can see, by the way, how I made my little error about the history earlier on, because obviously now that we're dealing with plugins as opposed to instruments, they are coming up in the mixer history. So we can actually just do that to get rid of them or bring them back again. Okay, quick drink. Right, so that's the basics with the plugins, or with the effects, should I say, not plugins. Plugins is an overall thing, isn't it? Once again, IQ dropping as we're live. So let's move on to the next section. You'll see when we get to presets and things, things start to get really interesting. So here we go. We're back to home on the media tab. Once again, apologies if this is a little difficult to see, but this is the way that this tab works. There's really not much we can do about that, although we are kind of hoping that at some point we have the ability to make this larger on the screen, a bit like the track list over here, which we can make as large as we want. Right, loops and samples. So we'll click that. So here we have a list or collection of all the different loop and sample packs that you have. These wouldn't normally be stuff that you've purchased. So, you can see here I've got quite a few of these. I don't know where some of them came from, to be honest. They've built up over the years. There's a loop mash library there. There's various other things. There's some of the pro sound effects. The sequel library, gosh, that goes back a little way. And I'm presuming most of you will actually have a similar collection. I don't think I've ever actually purchased any of these, so most of them will come along with Nuendo or Cubase. So let's just pick one, Ambient Lounge. How's that? As soon as we click it, once again, you see the whole search list. You can see the sounds, and you can see we can filter them by the various categories and subcategories, styles, and so on. So one thing I want to point out here, okay, let's just see if we can, I think I need to put my headphones on for a second. Maybe if you want to follow along with your headphones, sorry, I'm just going to untangle them. Let's put the headphones on. Okay. So, I don't know how clear that is.
The better part of the man.
So we're going to... So, this is an interesting point. You hopefully can hear that now. I can see it going... I can see it coming up on the control room. So presumably that means that you're hearing that. Now, if we happen to not be hearing anything, and this happens quite a lot I've got mine set on a little key command here. You can see I've just clicked this button that says deactivated control room use phone channel. So normally this is in preferences. If you go to the preferences area of Nuendo, you can change this. So if we say activated control room using activated control room use phones channel for auditioning or as preview, if I have that on the headphones channel, you can see that we're not hearing anything now. And that's because I'm using not a headphones channel to send audio to you guys. So if you're using your headphone channel, which you can see it here on my control room, that the auditioning or the preview is coming out of the headphones channel. So in order to be able to hear that through your main speakers, we simply have to deactivate that. And that's done in preferences. Again, I'm not going to worry about going through and showing you it, but the setting itself is in preferences. And you can also, as I have done, set up a key command to deactivate it and activate it. Because quite often you'll be wanting to listen to stuff with headphones, and quite often you'll need speakers. And at the moment, we can't do both. So deactivate use phones channel. So now we should all be hearing. Okay, so there's your basic audition. At the bottom here, we have a section that enables us to do some clever things with the actual files that we're listening to. I'm not going to go into this now because it's tiny, and as I said, we're struggling with this right zone because we can't make it any bigger. But we'll go into how this all works, this bottom section here. We'll go into that when we get to the main window. But suffice to say, and I think you know what's coming here, we can literally just audition a loop. There you go. We can align it to the project, so that's now going to play it at the tempo of the project. Again, I'll show you this in detail when we get there. We can grab the loop and drag it wherever we want. Let's put it right in the middle of the screen. And now if we press play, tiny little thing there, but hey. And you can see that that's actually lined up nicely with the project tempo. Clever stuff. So that's the loops and samples. And once again, really not much need to go into more detail there. We can go back here. We can choose a different one. Let's go for, I don't know, hip hop vault. Let's see what we got here. Now, because I've got these set to align to project, if I drag that one in and put it right next to the other one, you will have them both running in sync, hopefully. Turn the click off. So this can be quite handy because you can leave this, you can leave that section open at the right-hand side. Obviously, that's the whole point of it. So dragging stuff across onto the project can be quite handy, as opposed to when we're using the main big MediaBay window, which we'll get to in a minute, which is a big window, and therefore if you're dragging things from that, you have to move the window around. But with this right section, for loops and so on, yeah, it can be quite useful because you can just leave it there. All right, so let's turn the camera back off and move on. So that's loops and samples. So what we're going to do now, we will hit the little home button and we'll go into presets. Okay, so we got a whole bunch of preset options here. Once again, hope you can see this. I'm doing my best to kind of zoom in on the various sections, but if I forget, sometimes you just have to bear with me. So in the presets, we've got these 5 areas. So let's quickly step through these. Track presets, we've got audio, double click to create a track or drag to, yeah, okay, so let's go to track presets, and then there's a subsection to that. We've got audio and VST instruments, sampler, MIDI, multis, etc. So let's use the audio as an example. Once again, we have the same thing where we can filter by names, or we can reset and we can actually just type in a search. Excuse me. Okay, so I've had a bit of a cough this week, so luckily I've got a cough button on my little thing here, so hopefully there won't be too much of that coming across to you guys. So, okay, audio track presets. Well, how does that work? All right, so let's find one. There's drums in the pipeline factory. So what we can do here is we can actually just double click that. Actually, you know what I should do here? Let's just to make sure this is yeah, a little bit more consistent. We'll just tidy things up a little bit here. We can get rid of the existing effects channels that we've made. So there we go. All right, so these are all mine. They're all prefixed with the PAP, which is my initials. So let's just pick one of these. So if I double click that, you'll see the little Waves logo there. And you'll see that what has happened is, once again, in the effects channels area, and we've still hopefully got that visible, you'll see here that what's happened is that channel was obviously a bass preset, and you'll see that it's created the track as an effects track with the channels inserted already. So let's try another one. Let's go for, because I started naming them a little bit better kind of later on. So here's a vocal group. So if I double click that, what's going to happen? It's again appeared here. We can hopefully view that. Yeah, and you can see that's one of my vocal channels. All right. So we'll just double check that that is all visible. And there you go. All the plugins that I used for that particular group are all there. Now then, that's that. Okay, so what if I want to insert those? Whoops, it's a bit big, isn't it, that mixer? What if I want to insert those on an existing channel? Let's again find the okay, drums and bass group. Oops. So we'll drag that. We'll take it up to that another thing again. Remember, like we did earlier on, where you insert it into the middle of the track. And if I bring up another, you can see that it's inserted my drums and bass plugin, which is actually just one plugin that I have. That's over the drums and bass group. So we'll do one more. We'll do a lead vocal channel. Let's put this onto track 1 and bring up track 1. And you can see we've got oh, that wasn't lead vocal, it was lead guitar. I do apologize. So let's do a lead vocal one. I'm trying to find stuff that might be a little bit more interesting to see, you know, the amount of info that's stored. All the young dudes lead vocal. All right, so that's going to go on track 2. And once again, there's track 2, and we can see there all the plugins have been inserted onto that track 2. All right, so let's, once again, history here. Let's go back, get rid of all that stuff. Quite a lot, so it might take a second to go through it all, but yeah, it's managed fine. So that's track presets, audio. So what else have we got? Well, we've got VST instruments. And again, this is not the instrument itself. This is presets with that instrument. So again, let's grab one. I think this is some of the preset stuff here, some of the Steinberg stuff. I've got some of mine. Let's find one. Okay, let's just banjo ARP track preset. Okay, that one doesn't seem to want to work. Or is this because I am... yeah, okay. There we go. Don't know what I did wrong there. And you can immediately hear that B3 ring mod has brought up the instrument with the preset itself. And if we set it into monitor, so that was the preset I set up for some rocky stuff. We could try another one. Let's just get rid of that. What else have we got here that might be useful? A bass, jungle bass. Let's just drag that over. For some reason, some of these don't seem to want to. Oh, yes, I remember now. I did have this issue earlier on, and what it is when you click on the thing here, and you actually grab hold of it, you have to wait. You have to give it a second, because obviously it's loading that up in advance. So there we are. There's a particular bass sound that I had, and that's and if we look at that, you can see that not only is it the instrument itself, but it's also loaded up the plugin that was in that instrument. Nice. All right, so next, once again, let's get rid, remove. Let's go back, track presets. We've got sampler. Well, that that goes without saying. These are the sampler tracks. So if we do this over here, we will get a sampler track. Again, there's not really much need to. Okay, so we can get rid of that. There's no need to worry too much. And we can also get rid of the bottom zone again. So that's your sampler track area. Track presets, MIDI. Once again, the MIDI area. Now again, there is a little bit more to this, but we'll get to that when we get to the main window. I'm kind of trying to cover as much as I can on this area, but when we get to the main window, we'll look at the MIDI stuff in a little bit more detail. Multi. Let's have a look at the multi area. So these are multiple channel presets, exactly how it says in the description there. So let's grab this one. This one I was looking at earlier on. It's a 3-channel bass preset. So we drag it over. You can see it's loading in, and if I play, quite a distorted bass sound, which is easy bass, but let's look at the actual channel, and you can see that there's 3 channels there. and one of them has an overdrive setup on it. So there's the sub, there's the channel 2, and there's the main, and put them all together. Which was for, again, another rock track I did at some point. But again, the nice thing here is, as long as you're careful with your naming, I think that's the key, really. Is sorry, I need to have a little drink here. I've got a very tickly throat today. Oh, lovely. As long as you're careful with your naming, I think that's the key with all this. And a lot of you guys have already come to this conclusion, but it's something that, you know, can catch you, and this, you have to either learn it by making mistakes yourself or by somebody like me telling you. So I'm telling you, be careful with your naming, or should I say be more detailed with your naming. Even me, I'm looking back at some of this stuff and I'm thinking, well, what the heck was that? But then I can see other things that I've done where, like that, for example, whatever easy bass 3 channels. So that immediately told me whatever, believe it or not, was the name of the song. It's not me saying whatever. Was the name of the song. It's easy bass. There's 3 channels. I know immediately what they are, and there you go. Right, camera back off. And we've done enough on multi, I think, for now. So that's track presets. We'll go back, and I think we're about there on the right-hand side. Right, so we're back to the, okay, so we go home, we go back to presets again. Let's just double check that we haven't missed anything. We've done track presets, so we've done all of those 5 sections. So strip presets, well, this is again the same scenario as what we were looking at earlier on. You've got your searchable categories at the top. You've got your overall search if you need it. You've got your ability to reset and so on. But these are specifically aimed at the channel strip, which is, of course, Steinberg's built-in channel strips. So we can drag that across the same method as before. And you can see if I drag it across just to below that, let's get rid of this space again. If I drag it across, you can see that it's made a, where are we? An effects channel with the strip settings set up however they were saved in that particular area. And once again, also, let's use the same one. Guitar clean bridge, let's drag it onto another, and then if we bring up our another track, you can see that the strip has now been set as it was saved in that preset. And like I said, if you find yourself as well that some of them don't seem to work, I'm seeing all these ones with 3 stars, which was the default at one point, wasn't it? And they don't seem to do anything at all. There could be reasons for that. I haven't looked into it because I don't use these very often in this area. So let's go back. That's strip presets. Pattern banks. Let's try a pattern bank. Okay. So pattern banks, let's choose this one here. We can audition the pattern. It comes up quite quickly because it's, I think it's Groove Agent, this one. And again, we can drag that over and make a track from it, bring up the Groove Agent, and I think the pattern is already ready to play. Although it's not playing at the moment, but I don't think we need to worry about this. It's pretty obvious. Pattern banks. Okay. So we then have FX chain presets. I think we've already dealt with a VST. Yeah. Okay. We'll get rid of that little pattern bank thing that I just created. And once again, you can see it's created a full chain there. which is marvelous. And also, of course, the same thing applies as before. We can, let's drop that onto another and find our another track, and there is the FX chain. So a lot of these kind of appear similar, don't they? They're kind of doing similar things. And I think that the thing is to experiment a little bit and see what works best for you. So let's go back. And of course, VST effects, well, that's all the presets that are existing on your VST plugins and so on. And again, let's pick one. We'll drag that across, and you should see, again, it's created the FX channel and inserted the plugin, and also set up the actual preset for you. And that would work for any of the others as well. So we'll go back to presets, back to home, and there's only a couple more to get through, and then we move on to the main window. And to be honest, we're not far off now. User presets, again, all of this is basically the same thing. Let's just get rid over here. Again, we'll remove those tracks. All of these are basically the same thing that we've already looked at, but in this case, they're all user stuff only. So you're not gonna, like I told you earlier on, I tend to name mine quite, particularly. But you're not going to get confused here by all the kind of factory presets as well. So these are audio track presets. This is a chorus group. We can just double click on that, and hopefully you will see it's loading there. And if we go over to there we are, and you can see, oops, that it's loaded that there with all the chorus stuff that that I made at the time, which is very neat. So that's a big chorus vocal channel with de-esser and so on and so forth. So it's really handy to be able to call these back. Even the panning settings and so on have all been called back. And I just want to quickly check something here. Let's just, yeah. So that's actually brought that up. I should have mentioned this earlier on because this has happened a couple of times and I didn't quite see the icon here. But if it was saved as a group, it'll bring it back up as a group. So that's not an effects channel, it's a group, even though it's appeared just underneath the effects channel folder. But I think you guys will have already spotted that. Right, a quick drink and we move on. We'll just do one more of those just to show if there's another way to do it. So this is a drum preset. Let's drag that. And instead of double clicking it, we'll put it on the flange track here. And if we go to flange, you can see everything's there that was part of that preset. The plugin, the EQ, even right down to the pre area. Okay. So the user track presets. Again, we've got audio, which we've already looked at. We've got VST instruments. There won't be too many of these because I tend to save them within the instrument itself, but you get the idea. There's no real need to go through all of those. We've got sampler MIDI, and again, we have multi, which would be multiple channels, individual channels, but multiple, as opposed to a single group channel, which obviously is something that you would send multiple channels to. So VST instruments, let's just have a quick look there. If we double click, immediately we get the instrument channel. We'll show the instrument. Oops, it's a big one. And let's just play. Yep, That's pretty much as I remember it. So we can get rid of that before we move on. So I think we'll leave the user preset section for now. The file browser basically enables you to browse through all the files and folders that you have on your computer. So we don't need to go through all that in detail right now, but suffice to say that you can also label favorites, which again we'll get to in a minute when we get over to the main window, which is in fact really what we're going to do next, I think. There's your favorites area, and again, I think I'll show you how to do this on the main MediaBay window. So let's move into that now. We've pretty much exhausted the right-hand media area. And what I'm going to do now is to finish off is to go through it on the big window. Now, I'm thinking, you know, the more I thought about this, I'm thinking, well, maybe I should have done the big window first and then the right-hand zone second, but hey, you know, it's done now. So we'll go through the main MediaBay window, and some of the things that are duplicated we'll skip through, and we'll go into a little bit more detail on some of the things that aren't. Just a quick check how we're getting on. Okay, yeah, all right. So we'll hopefully answer some of the questions and so on as well. And by the way, thanks for showing up, those of you that are with us. Right, let's move on. Camera off, and we're into the main MediaBay window right now. Yeah, we're still okay. So like I said, really it's a tricky one, but we're going to look at the main window now, so this will be a little bit more easy to see. Most of what we're going to do now you could have applied to the right zone, and I know, you know, you might be thinking, well, why didn't we just do the main window first? And my reasoning behind this was, well, the right zone is often overlooked. And the MediaBay itself is often overlooked, but the right zone section, something that, I mean, I know, you know, like yourselves, I know quite a number of people that use Nuendo and Cubase, and the right zone is one of those things that, well, I didn't realize we could do that there. So I just thought it would be useful to go over it in a little bit more detail. But now we'll move into the main kind of meat and potatoes. So back to the door screen, and I'll leave this all open because the MediaBay itself isn't going to fill the entire screen. So the default hotkey for the main MediaBay window is F5, and there it is. So that's what it looks like. Now, don't forget, this appears in various other places. So once you've kind of grasped all the things that we've been looking at earlier, you know, a lot of the other things will start to make sense as well. For example, let's go into the mixer. And if we go to the track preset area and say load track preset, you can see that it's kind of a cut down version of the MediaBay with similar functions and features. You know, depending on what it is that we're actually, you know, what you're actually loading, that would be that's a track preset, so that would have showed you the track preset area. Even if we go to the, I don't know if it'll work with this particular plugin because, yeah, this is UAD. But if we went to a VST3 plugin, for example, you'll see a cut down version again of the MediaBay. Right, so get rid of all that, and let's have a look at the window. So I've got this quite large. Let's see what happens if we kind of try and fit it into a particular area on the screen. This one, that's too small. Maybe there. Yeah, and then I can zoom in now on that, and you should be able to see it quite clearly. I would normally have it actually a bit larger than that. All right, so we've got sections on the main MediaBay window. So first of all, we've got the file browser, which is, you know, the main section. We've got the toolbar at the top. The file browser allows you to scan specific folders in your system and to add favorites and so on, which we'll get to in a second. The toolbar, obviously, there's lots of ways to set things up there. So the toolbar contains tools and shortcuts for settings and functions in the MediaBay. It allows you to switch between the previously defined favorite locations and so on. And don't forget that favorites in the MediaBay are not automatically scanned, so you have to do those, and we'll get to scanning now as well. Okay, yeah, so the filters section at the top here, the same thing. We have a choice between logical and attribute, which again we're going to get to in a second. And the results, which is the main thing. Don't forget here as well, we can actually resize these side points just to make it a little bit easier to see. The previewer at the bottom, again, we're going to get to that in a second. And attributes over on the right, we've two ways of doing this. Again, dynamic or defined, we'll go through those now. So, first of all, let's have a look at the toolbar. Now, so we'll start over on the right-hand side because this is where all the setup is done. So as you can see, again, we've got the two zones, the left and right, which we can hide and show. Like the same thing with the main window, the same thing with the mixer window. We can also do that, it's very similar actually, with the window layout there. And the main thing here is to set up the toolbar. Now, there isn't that many controls on it, so to be honest, leaving them all on is not really an issue. But if you find that you're looking at the MediaBay on a smaller screen and it's kind of compressed down like that, for example, now I've got to put it back again. You can, whoops, let's do that again. I've set it to always on top now, haven't I? 1 second, there we go. All right, so we can go to setup and we can set up which areas we want to see and what we don't want to see. And we can also save them as a preset. So if you have a cut down version that you want to use on a smaller screen, you can save that. In my case, I've just got my PAP def, which is actually just everything on. So then the rest of the items here, let's go back over to the left now. So this moves us up, back, down, backwards and forwards in the actual file tree itself. And this is the bit that I was talking about earlier on. So I've got, as you can see, my favorite folders are kind of defined here. So if there was an area that I particularly like and that I use a lot, I could say, okay, let's say Cubase projects there. And what I can do, it's already there actually, but what I can do is right click. See, I'm right clicking there and I can add to favorites. And then it always appears, no matter what, it always appears up at the top in the favorite section, and also of course in the favorite section on the right hand side like we looked at earlier. We can of course search the entire MediaBay with this little area here. We can choose which kind of files. So let's switch back to all media so that we're going to see everything that exists. The ratings, if you happen to use those, I don't, but if you happen to use them, you can choose by the star ratings here to what you see. And this little button just resets everything. You can see it moving to show you what it's looking at, to show you that it's actually making, processing things. The results and the number of results, we can update again, and we can shuffle them if you just want, if you've got a group of files that you want to randomize, we can shuffle them around a bit. Or if you are only showing, let's say you're only showing 20 results here, and there's 100 files, well, if you shuffle them, then you'll see a different set of 20. The number of items waiting, we've got none at the moment because I've actually managed to scan them all. So those are all pretty straightforward. There's one really important point I want to get to, which we're nearly there now. But the other section here would be the settings. So I like to have it set like this. It's up to you. You can choose to set however you want. But I like to have hide folders that are not scanned because I've got quite a lot of stuff on my system that I really don't ever need to see. And I'm sure that you guys will be similar to this. So if I turn that off, hide folders that are not scanned, so it's going to show everything. You can see all my user documents, my desktop over here. And if I went into the computer itself, you can see there's loads of folders and files and all sorts of things that I really don't ever need to see in the MediaBay. So I like to have that turned off. The other thing would be to show only the selected folder. And again, well, part of the beauty of MediaBay for me is that you can see everything, but not what you don't want to see. Scan folders when MediaBay is open only. Again, this would be quite handy because it stops, if you keep that selected, that will stop MediaBay from trying to scan. Now, the scanning is something that is really important, and I probably should have mentioned right at the beginning, but we'll do it right now. So, of course, in order to, let's just close that for a moment. In order for MediaBay to be able to list all these files, you have to tell it, you have to let it index them and do its magic, as it were. So if I say, for example, let's pick VST sound here. Initially, there'll be nothing shown. This list here would be empty. So what you have to do is to allow MediaBay to see everything and to index it and to pick up all the attributes and so on, is actually scan the area. So you can right click, we can refresh the view, and if we find a particular folder, we can say rescan disk, and you can see it's gone red there very briefly. Let's do another one. You see it goes red while it's scanning that area and it's stepping through everything. Again, if I open those, you can see, let's do that again, rescan. You can see it's stepping through. We'll try and find something that's a little bit more. There we are. Let's try the Groove Agent. You can see stepping through. Some are orange, some are yellow, some are red, and some are white. So this is quite important. The check marks here, they're quite important. White indicates that all subfolders are included in the scan, and orange indicates that at least one subfolder is included in the scan. So you can see there that not all of that area has been selected. We'll get to that again in a minute. While it's actually scanning, again, if we do the refresh or rescan, you can see the, let's pick another one. All right, so those don't need to, I know I should have really left some that don't need doing. Let's close it, open it again. Let's find something else. User content, project templates. Let's just see if we can trigger a scan. Don't seem to be able to trigger a scan now. Okay, there we go. All right, you can see there red and yellow. So red indicates that a folder is currently being scanned. White indicates that the subfolders have all been scanned. And yellow indicates that at least one subfolder has not been scanned. Now that one's stuck in yellow at the moment, and now it's done. So the other side of this, again, this is one of the more kind of advanced features, but it's something that a lot of people are not aware of. And that would be creating volume databases. So what does that mean? Well, okay, let's look at my examples here. If I go to this computer, you can see these two icons slightly different from the others. Excuse me, cough button. Oh dear. Okay. So you can see that little icon there. I hope it's clear, but it's slightly different to the normal icons that are used. And that's because it's a volume database. And what does that mean? Well, that's my D drive. And actually, in this case, that drive is an SSD drive. and it's actually inside the computer. I have 4 or 5 SSD drives and a few external ones. So if you imagine if I wanted to take that drive to your studio, and it's got loads and loads of samples and hundreds of files and all sorts of things on it, as you can see, it would be quite a bit of a pain. It'd be quite all right, we're all set up to go. So I've just got, here's my disk. And now we have to sit there and wait for MediaBay to scan them all. And if there's thousands of files on there, that can be a little bit, I don't know, what's the word, embarrassing, a little bit long-winded. Cheers. Goodness me, look at the time. Okay, we're going to have to move on. I'm getting too relaxed here. Right, camera off. So what you can do is you scan your disk. In my case, this DAWAV. You scan your disk, and then you can create a volume database. And what that does is it will scan all the files and folders, but then the index with all the relevant info is actually stored on the disk itself. So, for example, in this case, the D drive, if I go to my actual D drive here, you can see there's all the files, all the folders, but there has appeared a little folder called .steinberg, and inside that is the MediaBay database. So now, if I take that disk to your studio and plug it in, all we have to do is look for the disk in the tree here on the left, right click and mount. So if I unmount it, it will disappear. And then let's imagine that we've just plugged it in. So we have to go back over here and turn the whole things back on. Let's find the D drive, which is there, and mount volume database, and there it is. Immediately it came up. There was no need to scan anything. So super fast, super quick. Right, let's move on. So we've seen all quite a lot, let's say, of the complex features here, and I think so. What I'm going to do before we finish off, because we are running out of time, I'm going to show you how the previewer works, because everything else here is basically the same as what we were looking at earlier on. The search is very similar. Let's go to some loops here. This is just a bunch of, these were when I was doing dance music production. So these are loops. The attributes on the right hand side here, you can define these yourself, and again this is another thing that's mentioned in the settings window here, is whether you're allowed to edit in the results list or not. So if you don't feel comfortable, you can turn that off and it won't allow you to change anything in the actual window that you're looking at. Another area was scan unknown file types. Well, I don't know, why would you want to do that? Maybe somebody can tell me, but for me, why would I want to scan a file type that I don't know what it is? Maybe you have a reason for that. And file extensions I always like to see, and I have the same thing in Windows itself as well. I always like to see what a file extension is. So enough of that. So attributes we can define, we can, you know, and again, you've got this whole list of attributes that you can show. But I like to use the dynamic ones. In this case, there really isn't any attributes to show, excuse me. But what I want to do now for the last few minutes is just move on to the previewer, because this was the main section that we didn't look at earlier on. So let's find a loop. There's a, first of all, actually, let's just get the project. So we'll get rid of all this stuff. We could just close that folder down. and we've got a little section highlighted of the project. It's blank at the moment, and the tempo is set at 120. Click on. You should be able to hear that. Okay. Right. So let's say we've been working on a track and we want to add a loop. So we can go through these loops and have a listen to them. So let's look at the preview area at the bottom. First of all, we've got the volume here in the center, which is pretty obvious. If we press play. Now, these tend to be a little bit quiet, but let's find. So the controls on the previewer, very, very neat. We've got a play and start, and we've got a pause, but we've also got the cycle, which when you're doing loops and so on, can be really useful. So if you imagine you've got a kick and a snare that's running, or even a normal drum beat, to be honest, even in rock music, some of these things can be quite useful. Not just for dance and house and so on. So the cycle will mean that that will play over and over again. All right, so these are perfect loops. They're recorded at 44.1. It shows you the info there. And if you're lucky, it'll show you the tempo, which is 128. Now, we're at 120 at the moment, aren't we? So if we play the track and then start the loop at some random point, you can hear them miles out of time because the loop's 128 and the tempo of the track is 120. The other nice thing is the ability to auto-play new results. Get the idea with that. Now, the nice thing here, which again for music as well, very useful, is align beats to project. And this was the area that, you know, really kind of changed everything when this was first introduced. So we click the button align beats to project, and now what happens, the track tempo is 120, and now the beats will be aligned to 120. And to take it a step further, if we say wait for project to play, we can now imagine that we had some other music playing in the background at 120. Yep, okay, didn't like that one. And so on. And when you find the loop that you like, we just grab it and chuck it onto the project. It'll import it. You can do what you want with the conversions and so on. And there it is. So now, if we go back to the project itself, we'll make it a little bit bigger so you can see. There we are. And we'll make sure that MediaBay isn't going to play, which otherwise you'll get it twice. So we'll turn that button off. And now, that was the loop that we just listened to. And on top of that, you'll notice if you go into audio that it has been set into musical mode. You can see it here. And the reason for that is because now if I wanted to, because you had it set to Audition at the project tempo in MediaBay, that now means that we can go to the project tempo itself, and we could maybe change that to 135. And miraculously, the whole thing follows along. So that's really neat and really handy. You know, the ability to build up loops. And now you can hear that everything's playing at the new tempo that I've assigned to the project, and so on. So very easy to build stuff up. So let's just let's play what we've got at the moment. We'll put the actual project into loop. We'll put the project into loop mode. Let's find, have we got a bass sound? I don't know. Actually, you know what? We're running out of time, so we don't need to do this. It's not really super relevant anyway, but basically very easy to build things up. So, aside from that, what else can we do with the previewer? Well, let's find some effects. So again, let's use the Vengeance, because the Vengeance stuff is really useful. So let's have a listen to that. Now, an effect like that if you're doing sound design, for example, or even music, that effect does not have a tempo. Well, it does. Everything has a tempo, I suppose, but we don't want that to be changed. So what we need to do there is we turn off the align beats to project, and you'll hear the difference. You can see how it plays, how it was recorded. If we turn align beats to project on, you can see that it's not quite gonna. And this may be something that you will find. Some effects, it doesn't really matter because they're not defined in any way, but some things will be defined at a certain tempo, but you don't want them to play at that tempo. Now, the other thing, again, before we finish off here, I've still got one or two little things that I want to go through. Again, we'll use another one of these as an example. So let's say we liked the ambient noise at the end of that, but we don't like the attack. What we can do in Nuendo is we can select a part of that file here, and then just drag that to the project. And bearing in mind that that will only work when we don't have the matching to the project tempo. So once again, a quick reminder here, this is also affected by the Audition settings. So remember I was showing you earlier on about the control room use phones channel. Make sure that if you're listening on your speakers that you have that disabled, otherwise you won't hear it. So yeah, we're pretty much there, I think. There's one more thing that I wanted to show you, which is quite an undiscovered feature. Easily pull in loops and pull in files, just drag them and then there you go. So simple. So we've got some MIDI files. Now let's see if I can find a MIDI file. All right. So we're not hearing anything at the moment. And this is something, you won't be able to hear this now because I've selected the soft sync. So this is a drum fill. And it's a MIDI file. So what if we were to create an instrument track? Let's do something nice and simple, nice and quick. Rhythm, let's do easy drummer. That's that. Back to MediaBay again. So now we've got this drum fill, but we can't hear it, but we want to hear it with a MIDI instrument. And don't forget, this is MIDI file, this is not audio. So you can see over here, we've got this item that says not connected. We can now connect it to any of our MIDI outputs. Or in this case, MIDI inputs as the easy drummer that we just made. Now, if we play that, it's playing the hi-hat. But I think you get the idea. That should, obviously that the notes are in different places. But the point being that you can find your let's try this one. No, they all seem to be. These are all fills, aren't they? but you get the idea. In fact, I could have actually searched for some MIDI files and found something a little bit more interesting. But the point here was not really to listen to the result. The point here was that you've got your MIDI files, and instead of just listening to them using, you know, the default wavetable synth, you can actually assign which instrument is going to play your MIDI file there. So let's see now, before we move on and say bye-bye, I want to just see if there's anything I might have omitted from my list here. I think the thing is, we went through so much stuff with the right-hand side that there's not really a great deal left. But the important things here, scanning the files, volume database. Don't forget when you're naming things to add as many attributes as possible. And let's just show the search in action one more time. So if I type drum there, I need to select all media. I'm going to reset, and we'll now find that anything that comes up on that search, let's do it this way. Let's go, we'll do PAP, which is my initials. This is one thing that I didn't show you earlier on. So this has now come up with all the PAPs. It's not just my files. We can also add, and this is an almost often missed little area, we can add another area. So we can say any attribute matches PAP. Oh, but I don't want MP3s to appear. So any attribute that omits MP3. So now we won't see any of the MP3s, but we'll see all the files that have PAP in them. We can add another section. We can say the artist, I don't know, author maybe. Let's see, author matches Phil. And you'll see that a lot of those have come up now because I was the author of those files. So very, very, very powerful. That's the logical search side. And then, of course, the attribute search side, as you saw earlier on, these are all, you know, the usual attributes that you can look at. Right. My throat is getting very sore now. I'm sure you can imagine. As I said, I've had a bit of a nasty throat this week. So I'm going to sign off. I hope we've got through everything. I will make sure this is all fully indexed later on, so that if we want to look back at it later on, you know, if there's any reference side, you know, even if it's just a little tiny bit, hopefully it'll be useful. Thanks a lot for being with us, guys. I'm just looking. Yeah, okay, we had a few people stick around. That's really kind of you. I know this is a bit of an odd one. It's a bit like my mixer thing. You know, it's one of those where it's not super exciting to watch, but the reference will be there, the legacy will be there. And due to my mental state at the moment, I hope it wasn't too confusing, and I hope it made sense to you. So I'll see you next month sometime, maybe before that. Not sure what we're going to do yet. Don't forget, we're also going to be looking at the Project Logical Editor. A lot of questions about that, but I just knew today when I did my run through earlier on, there's no way we're going to have time to fit that all in. So yeah, that's it for now. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great rest of the evening or morning or whatever it is, wherever you are. And I'll see you all again soon. Thanks a lot. Super mega large.